Welcome, you all. I am Baron Baptiste. Welcome to Disrupt the Drift. This is a place where we can tell the truth and the truth can be told. Today, we want to talk to you about being strong and strengthening yourself in the face of crisis. The world's in crisis, and maybe not you individually. Maybe you are suffering a crisis in your life. Maybe it's a general crisis. I was listening to something and statistics about there's over 100,000 people every year, the last couple of years, that have died from just fentanyl overdoses. The drug epidemic in our country, in the US, and then that 10X is if you take it globally, the drug epidemic, there's a lot of suffering. There's wars, whether Ukraine and Russia, the Middle East, Africa, there's the suffering and the tragedy in the world. There's a world in crisis. The current economic situation we're all living in, it's drastic for most people living fork to mouth. Things are so expensive now, basic food, gas, things. There's a crisis, and underneath it all, I think people sense there's something going on a bigger level. We want to talk about who do you need to be for yourself, for the people in your life. Who do you need to be in the face of crisis? David, how you doing?
Oh, fantastic. It's great to be here, Baron.
Yeah, so I had a question. What do you think? Do you think I know a lot of people living in bubbles and they're just going on in their lives, they're hustling in their lives, things aren't so bad. And then I know other people that are really suffering. But then there's this global level of suffering and crisis. There's a lot of suffering in the world. Do you think that even if you're living in your own bubble, you still feel it at some level? You feel the kind of collective inhumanity. I don't know if that's what's his name, Jung, said when he was talking about the collective unconscious. But do you think we feel it at a personal level, even if it's not impacting us directly? Is there some vibration? Is there some spiritual veil of we feel evil in the world or dark forces in the world? Do they impact us personally? What do you see about that?
I would have to say that unless you've insulated yourself from reality, you're going to feel it, and you're going to see it, and you're going to hear it, and you're going to experience it on so many different levels, and especially on a physical level, because we are sensitive beings. We are involved in an environment where other people exist, family members and other people that we have to work with, and then we see people on the news, and we are immersed in a world full of people's problems. If you turned on the TV,
which I don't.
But let's say
I try not to, but I do get on YouTube and get enough of it there. Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you turn on the news or no matter where you are, all of the content of every program is either foolishness, and this is what these influencers do. They get involved in doing all kinds of the Tide Pod challenge or whatever it is. They come up with cockamamie things to challenge people to do, but most of the content of our lives is occupied with problems. So how can you not be sensitive to problems? Now, I would say, though, we're talking about...
just for a clarification. Yeah. So even if someone is escaping, staying distracted from their own problems or the problems in the world, is that they're still being impacted. You can't really escape it.
I think that's an accurate statement for a lot of reasons. And this is why people have a tendency to go to comforts and distractions and various kinds of self-medicating. If you don't have a headache, let's just say for the sake of this conversation, are you going to take a Tylenol? Or are you just going to take Tylenol every day just because you feel like taking Tylenol? No, you're going to actually address an issue with some kind of what you believe to be a remedy. And so overeating, video gaming compulsion, people, how many times a day do people look at their phones? Hundreds and hundreds of times a day. They look at their phone as like a constant distraction. And so we are all involved at some level with these And we'll go back to the word crises, the crisis in the Middle East, the crisis in Ukraine, the crisis in our own, in our own land. But at the same time, crisis is not necessarily a terrible and, oh my gosh, existential problem to each of us. It can be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let me read to you one of the definitions. There's many. There are 9 definitions, but I've chosen the middle one, number 5, crisis. The point of time when it is to be decided whether any affair or course of action must go on or be modified or terminated. So that's part of it. And then it goes on to say the decisive moment, the turning point. Now, see, the turning point is the point of crisis. That's really what we're talking about here. If your life is in crisis, have you reached the turning point yet where you're going to go, oh, I don't want to live this way anymore. No, I can't do this anymore. See, a lot of people tell themselves that every day, and they keep doing the same thing over and over again, thinking there's going to be some kind of different result.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you reached your turning point? That's the question. Now, the question is, now what do you do? Because the crisis has brought you to this place. As a matter of fact, let's just put it this way. If you turned around and said to crisis, imagine a crisis as a personified person. Thank you, crisis. How different would things be if you thanked crisis for bringing you to this point where you could actually begin to affect change?
Real change for yourself.
Whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, because it's really one person at a time. If the world is going to change, it's going to happen through one person at a time. Waiting around for things to change, good luck with that. It brings up a thought for me about, I think it was Jesus, I know it's a biblical quote, who said, be in the world, but not of it. So we're living in this vortex, this human vortex, society, culture, politics, all the things happening in the world around us, locally, from our own families, outward into the world, and then literally to the world globally. But it's like the Matrix, right? It's like there's this vortex. And how do we be in the vortex, but not of it? Because we can't just avoid the vortex. You know what I mean by vortex? It's all the external forces that are seen. But I think where a lot of people are asleep is the unseen forces that work on us that we're not aware of. It exists as a blind spot. And that's why I bring up the same point of, are we being impacted personally by what's happening globally? And we're asleep to that. Because I'm pointing to, we are impacted, even if we're in our own bubble, even if things are going well, or we're drifting along, or we're not doing so well. Is it just us personally, or is it global and the outside forces? But who do we need to be mentally, physically, spiritually to become a stronger person in the face of crisis? Okay. And to have that kind of personal preparedness. Maybe you're going through smooth waters now, but yeah, there's likely a tsunami on the way. If you're an entrepreneur like I am, there's always something you have to deal with. Whether you're an entrepreneur, you work for there's always more problems coming your way. It's the nature of life. Yeah, what do you see about that?
So I remember when I was very young, there was a great TV show called Kung Fu.
Oh, yeah, I remember David Carradine, yeah.
Yeah, and he was a Shaolin monk, and he went out into the world, and he was escaping from persecution in China, and he came to the United States, and he ended up dealing with the Wild West. But he always found himself in a crisis situation. Something terrible was going on. I remember one where they put him in a hole. It was probably 20 feet deep with another guy. And so it was a perfect contrast of how people can deal with crisis. And so the other guy in the hole was constantly in fear. He was constantly scraping at the walls, trying to scrape his way out of the situation. And David Carradine sat there, and he just got really quiet, and he was meditating. And he explained to the other guy, he says, look, whatever you're doing is not going to work. There's no way you're going to make this scraping and worrying and being angry about it. It's not going to get you out of this hole. And so he just kicked back and he objectively removed himself from the struggle. And so the answer here to your question is you're either a person who has chosen to be oblivious, or you have chosen to step back and be objective. Those are the two O words. Oblivious, you drink, you smoke, you live your life the way you're not going to let anything get in the way of you living whatever life it is you think is your life. But the other side of the equation is as you step back and become more objective and you stop struggling and you stop, because when you struggle, if you're in a quicksand, and you will sink if you struggle. It agitates the quicksand. It makes it more.
Yeah, it makes it stronger. You exhaust yourself, and the more you resist, the stronger it gets.
So the idea is, the other question is, why are you in the crisis? Because the average person will just absolutely react negatively and get resentful toward the crisis. And if you let's say your house is burning down, you're angry with the fire. What good does that do? That doesn't put water on the fire. So if your life is in crisis, you must necessarily step back from struggling. And again, a lot of this stuff is perceived. A lot of crisis is one man's crisis is another man's opportunity. And so I remember when in Desert Storm, when it was the Iranians or the Iraqis bombed the oil wells, and all these oil wells were on fire, and they were just, it was definitely an environmental crisis.
Catastrophe.
It was terrible. And that there are people that they brought over from the United States who were, what do they call them, like well busters. And they would literally take explosives and put them in these flaming openings that were on, just spewing out. And they would blow up the opening and it would put the fire out. They would have a force greater than the force that was pushing the oil and the gas out of the ground. But it was fascinating to me that one man's problem, one nation's problem is another nation's capacity to create solutions. We are all, if we're all in a struggle, if we're all in a quicksand, struggling and sinking, and we're grabbing other people and pulling them in with us, everybody's going to be sinking. Somebody's got to step back and be objective in a situation where a fire is broken out. The fire chief is the one who goes in and is objective about where the fire has to start being put out. And if he sees his men in that environment and he intuits that if they're up in a second story, I've heard and I've read stories about firemen who say, get out, everybody now, the roof's going to come down. And they go out, and just in that next moment, the roof comes down. Intuition is the only solution for crisis.
Yeah. But when you get upset and reactive and all stirred up and you allow yourself to be that way, you lose access, connection to your intuition.
Yeah.
To that to being calm and cool-headed under pressure. You lose power. You lose freedom to choose who you will be in a moment. A couple things come to mind. So you're bringing up something interesting about how other people intervene. And so in our own lives, looking at, okay, the world is in crisis. We're in some kind of crisis just by the fact of the world we live in. Personally, we are. And the people we have around us. So I told you I've been watching the Game of Thrones, and there was a cool quote I watched last night. And here's the quote. It was like, the snow will fall, the white winds will blow, the lone wolf will die, but the pack survives. Mm-hmm. And there's something about the pack and the people we have around us. One way we resist is by complaining. Like people complain. And I was talking to a family member yesterday, and he was like he's just been on this complaining thing about something that happened. And he was texting, and I finally called him up and I said, look, I get that you're bothered by this and you're annoyed by this, but you complaining about it's doing something to you, not the other person, not the person you're complaining about. It's not only doing something to you, within yourself, but all that complaining and staying on it and about it and obsessing and complaining, you're resisting life, but you're now filled with resistance. You're filled with whatever comes out of that resentment, and it is not good for you, but it's also not good for the people around you. And I think that the people we have around us, again, I call them dragons, right? Dragon people. Are they, they're drag-ons? Are they dragging on you?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's someone I know, like in my life, like this family member, and they mean something to me and they're going to be in my life, I want them in my life, but I'm not just going to sit around and watch them do that to themselves, but also put it over here with me and other people in our family. So I call them up and I'll confront it and have a bigger conversation, because it's something I think that a lot of people, it's a blind spot of two things: who they're being for other people. If you're complaining and you're being resentful or fearful, you're vomiting that on the people around you. But it's not good for you, for the person individually. And I think people don't see that. And what you keep saying, what you're speaking, the words you use, and where you're coming from, it creates your world. Yeah. And certainly it keeps you in the crisis or in the vortex. And what is it something about the ability to be aware when you're doing things that you see are sabotaging you and others around you? Because when you're not aware, you're doing that. You don't know you're doing that, but it's got you in its clutches. Mm-hmm. There's something about the first step is awareness. And then you have to get good at giving things up, like forgiving, like letting go, developing the muscle called letting go, the musculature. And what I notice is most people aren't good at letting things go. But you've got to develop the muscle of letting go, where most people are like a little baby, doesn't have any muscle function yet, can barely walk. That's the level of muscle most people have about letting things go.
But Baron, see, there's a dilemma. And this is where a crisis really occurs. Here's the third definition: an emotionally stressful event or traumatic change in a person's life. Now, what really precipitates that? What causes that moment of crisis? And I will tell you that it is not the external circumstance. Now, it can be. Let's say you're in an airplane and somebody shoots a missile at your airplane and you're going down. That's an imposed situation where you have no control. That's a real external crisis and you're probably going to die.
Yeah.
So what do you do about it? Now, but in most cases, we allow ourselves to be embroiled in crisis. In other words, we are induced into a reactivity. And the way I put it is, if you're not in control of yourself, then you will be controlled by something else. And what it really boils down to is that when you react, you become the effect of a cause. And that's a loss of identity. That's a loss of self. And so what's happened is somebody that is able to take away a piece of you through getting you to react in a negative way, even in a positive way. And so in a positive way, you will then start to seek that kind of reinforcement for people. And when you don't have it, you feel empty. But the same on the flip side, when somebody takes a piece of you by getting you to react negatively and badly, now you want what you lost. You want it back from them. And now you ruminate on what they have done to you.
Yeah, you blame them. You fault them for taking it from you, but you actually gave your power away.
You didn't realize it. And
gave
this is the problem. But most people
gave away your freedom. You gave away your power. You're giving it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
when you lose center, you give away power. You give away freedom. You give away peace of mind.
So
and then
and
then how do you recover center?
All right, but here's the deal.
Yeah.
Here's the deal, because it's a double meaning, right? If you become the effect of a cause, let's say somebody says something mean or horrible to you, or does something to you, or steals something, it doesn't matter what it is. Once you start reacting to that, now they are controlling you, whether it's direct or indirect, whether it's remote or on the spot, you're being controlled. You've lost control of yourself. But when the flip side of that is, let's say you stay completely neutral. when you're being assaulted or assailed or somebody's being horrible to you, and you step back and you just watch. Now, instead of you becoming the effect of them as a cause, you become the cause of an effect. And now it's going the opposite direction. Now you, as a calm person, are having an effect on this wreck of a person out here. And it actually is
Then you really start to see. Yeah, you
yeah,
really start to
it's,
see when you're
I've lost the
calm
word.
in your center of equanimity.
Yeah.
You start to
It's an
see.
exponent. It's an exponent. No matter how it is, you told the person you were talking to on the phone, you're affecting everybody else. Of course you are. You can't help it. But let's say that person stayed calm. Now that person becomes the effect of a cause. And that cause is calm,
Yeah.
center. That cause is focus. That cause is truth.
It
Whatever
causes
may
a
be.
different result in
Totally
the environment.
different. Yeah.
Different vibe, right?
Yeah.
Different vibe. It's interesting. I think the more out of control someone is with their emotions and reactivity, the more controlling they need to be. I think humans are addicted to certainty.
Mm-hmm.
And so with that need for certainty, you default is you can try to control everything. You try to control your world, your universe, to keep some kind of certainty. But life isn't linear like that. Life's organic, and you never know what's coming. So the world's in crisis. Could it get worse? Could a real crisis hit? Could a terrorist act? Or we never know. Are we going to get hit with cancer or a disease or a loss of someone close to us or something? We don't know. And you keep clinging to certainty and control is not going to serve you in those times. I know, I'll just speak from being an entrepreneur. Whenever I've taken on something new or a bigger thing that I've never done before, I used to go right away to how am I going to do this? And then I realized at a certain point, I don't know how. And even asking how is a terrible question because you don't know if you're going into the unknown. And when there's crisis, you're in the unknown. You can't know what you're going to do. You haven't been there before. You haven't been in that situation before. And that's where you need the center of the ground of your being and a connected to your center and a connection to your intuition, the inner promptings of what to do, what's the right thing to do in a moment, to have a connection to your inner light that shines the way. Yeah. But you can never really know. But there's also something about having something greater in your life, something greater than oneself, something bigger than oneself that also prompts you forward. And so and that may be just you're protecting and taking care of your family or loved ones. It may be if you're in your work life, you're taking care, being responsible for your work, people in your work life or work environment. You maybe it could be anywhere in life, but you have to have your head screwed on. But you said something about earlier about staying calm. But when you say that, I don't hear it like, okay, just stay calm in a controlled way and just shut up. It's different than that, right? It's a calmness that flows from within yourself, a calmness where you got your feet on the ground, your eyes and ears are open, you're awake, you're aware, you're alert, and you're connected. Different than disconnected. And then when something happens, you lose it because you're not connected.
There's another component. And the component, there's two things here I want to point to. Luck favors the prepared. Now, if you're a person who will do exercise, then one day when you need that strength, it'll be there because you've been preparing for it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with being objective or being calm. And that is that if you are a person who will practice meditation, okay, and get quiet and learn how to maintain a state of clarity, I guess it is. What it is, it's accumulative. It builds up. But the other side of the equation is objectivity. And objectivity is also accumulative. So it doesn't matter what happens. When you have objectivity and intuition, See, because objectivity allows for intuition. Intuition means to know without reasoning. Okay. Most people say, oh, it's women's intuition or whatever. There's common uses of the word intuition, but intuition is a source of knowing and knowledge and information that doesn't require any prior knowledge of it. It will come to you. You'll be shown. And then, Luke 12:12 says this in the Bible. Don't worry about what you'll say or do, for in that moment you'll be shown. That's a perfect analogy of intuition. It's revealed to you. It's something that you would never even have thought of is revealed to you. But see, most people are too busy trying to figure out their own answers.
Yeah, no, it's good. The physical part, what you mentioned about exercise, but I think there's something there. I know in my own life, like I'm training my body daily. I'm physically exercising, whether it's working out or hiking or doing yoga practice, but there's something about being physically prepared and strengthening yourself. The food you eat, the diet, your diet. What's the root of dietica? I think it means lifestyle, something like that. Way of life.
Way of life, yeah.
So your diet includes what you consume, what you put in your mouth, but part of your diet is also then what comes out of you, what you consume, and you could say mentally, your mind, preparing your mind. What are you taking into your mind? Are you taking in just mindless distractions, social media, or just garbage all the time? Or what's the mental diet you're taking? And then the spiritual, they're having practices, like meditation. Like you say, David, it's cumulative, right? You sit, you get present. Meditation is a way of connecting to your higher source, your creator, God. You create from it's creator to creature, my body, mind, being, creator to creature, and then creature creates into the world. And what are you putting out into the world is part of your diet, I say. It's a way of life.
Yeah, what goes in has to come out.
Yeah. It gets processed. It gets processed. Your liver processes things, your kidneys process, your digestive system, but you have a mental digestive system. And what are you consuming? The ways you're living, are they strengthening you? And as you say, David, are you practicing objectivity, or are you just living as a subjective reality where everything is about me, myself, and I, and you don't really see beyond your controlled environment and the bubble you live in? But I think we all have to burst the bubble and be a part of this world, but from our own sense of inner strength and physical strength, mental strength, and a spiritual strength and foundation that carries you through life. And whatever comes at you, you're ready for it.
Yeah, I would just reiterate, thank crisis. Don't curse it. Because cursing it is throwing more gasoline on a fire.
Yeah.
Right? Crisis has come about as a result of things that are most likely beyond your control, but maybe you did have some control over it. Maybe you never changed those tires that were wearing out when you should have. You have to do a little bit of self-examination here to see what it is that you may have done or neglected to do that might have brought about the crisis. And I see so many people that are overweight, and it makes me want to cry, because all they have to do is not do something. They have to stop doing those things, doing something over and over again, not really understanding what the outcome is going to be. They're going to end up with heart disease, their waistline
diabetes,
expands, everything. It's like they're actually doing things that are self-destructive, but they feel good at the time. So you have to step back and look at your life and say, what can I eliminate? I call it the conscious process of elimination. But the first thing to do is look at how you're becoming the effect of some cause. It could be in your own mind. You could be reacting and having conversations with people after the fact instead of standing up for yourself or saying a single word like no. There are all kinds of ways where you bring yourself to crisis. So don't hate crisis.
Yeah, and when
but
crisis
embrace it.
happens, it's also an opportunity, as you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
thank crisis. It's
Yeah.
an opportunity. I know when I was younger, I would get into things would happen, and then I would get into this kind of victim mindset and, woe with me or why me. And but that would typically it would amplify the crisis. It makes every situation way, way worse.
Yeah.
And it devastates your mind and body. And spiritually, you stay disconnected. But when things start happening, I say, okay, what do I need to see in myself? It's okay, God, show me, like, what am I not seeing? What have I been doing I'm not seeing to get this result? And sometimes it's outside of your realm of control. But every situation, whether you've been the source of it or some outer source that's outside of your realm of control, your viewpoint and what I've learned is when things happen, I can turn this upwards. You can always see it the glass half full or half empty, and you get a very different outcome. What's that cheesy saying? Things happen for us, not to us. No, I think things happen to us, but you can also turn that into something that's for you and for an opportunity to spiritually deepen and get more connected to what's true, and also see a new way of being with crisis or challenging situations in life.
Yeah, and there's a component again of knowing what you can change. In other words, I don't know what the quote is, but there's
it's a 12-step quote. God grant me the ability to, I'm messing it up, but grant me the ability to change the things I can and to accept the things I cannot.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
If there's things that you cannot change, you can't beat yourself up forever because you didn't have the ability to either change it at the time or know what to do about it. You've got to accept what you can't change, but then become aware of what you can change. And there are certain simple things that you can change about yourself.
Yeah.
Very simple things. And the truth, it comes as one realization at a time. It doesn't come as an elephant. It doesn't come all at once. It's not a package that's delivered at your door with 500 pounds of truth. It's a little truth, but each little truth is like a little seed that gets planted and something grows from that. Yeah. And one day you have a beautiful garden if you just nurture those little moments of truth that you could embrace.
Yeah, as a philosopher Voltaire said, he said, life is your garden and you are the gardener. Start pulling out the weeds.
That's it.
Yeah, cleaning up the soil of your body, your mind, your being. This is the
quote I was looking for.
Yeah.
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
Ah, that's it. Yeah, that's good.
Niebuhr.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
I believe that's in that 12-step.
Yeah. All right. Very good. We'll wrap up right here. Thank you all for listening.
One last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. David's got his book.
Unlimited.
David Masters.
All about developing your intuition.
Unlimited. Good title. I like it. Good cover, too.
You can find that on my website at escapeyourmindsprison.com.
Yeah. And you can check me out on baronbaptiste.com. I'm updating that website right now. It's going to be really nice in a few months. But if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. The analytics show that 74% of all the viewers on YouTube are not subscribed. So please subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Like the video, leave comments. If you're listening on a podcast platform, please leave a review, a positive, great review. Give us 5 stars. And thank you all. I am Baron Baptiste. Till next time, stay bold. Keep disrupting the drift. Keep taking that one step at a time. As Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begin with one step. One step. Keep letting things go. All right, y'all. Be well. Peace be with you.